It's just about that time when most people plan on going on festive season vacations. Holidays may be great, but we must always be cognizant that malaria is still an epidemic of epic proportions and the coronavirus is still very much of a pandemic. So this morning we are looking at understanding the difference between COVID-19 and malaria to look out for, especially if you are traveling to a malaria area. For more on this as well as the SADC Malaria Day that was observed yesterday, let's speak to Sherwin Charles, who is the co-founder of social benefit organization Goodbye Malaria. Sherwin, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning, Simpiwe. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. It's so great to have you this morning because we're speaking about a very important subject, and we should start, I suppose, with defining what the difference is in symptoms between malaria and COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there's a lot of similarities in symptoms between malaria and COVID, which causes concern. Both diseases will be seen as a fever, a headache, feeling run down. And it's very important at this time to highlight that we are going into malaria transmission season. And as such, should one be feeling fluey or have a high temperature, you're in an area that is known for malaria, please have a malaria test done as well as a COVID test and check to ensure that it's not malaria that you have. The worst thing we could do for a malaria patient is ask them to self-isolate.
Now, break down for us, if you can, what threat both diseases pose and at what stage?
Malaria is still a pandemic. If you look at the objectives as part of the SDG goals for 2030, it looks to ending the pandemics of malaria, HIV, and TB. And so as such, we still are faced with these pandemics as well as COVID right now. And for us to continue the work in malaria, the COVID environment has been incredibly difficult. We have had to ensure that we continue with our preventative measures, protecting people from malaria. The distribution of long-lasting insecticide nets has been particularly difficult in many environments due to the limitations of movement, the number of people that may gather, and these nets have had to be delivered on a house-to-house basis. Our program, which runs in South Africa, Eswatini, and Mozambique, we focus on indoor residual spraying, which means our teams move from house to house within Mozambique, applying insecticide, protecting people within their homes. So it's important that our teams are free of COVID. We have protocols that we follow. We need to ensure that there's no provincial movement, that teams work within the districts that they come from. And of course, one of the biggest challenges within the malaria programs has been the acquisition of PPE. As we all know, there's been a scarcity and the costs have risen incredibly. So it's been particularly tough for us to continue the work protecting people from malaria. Of course, with COVID, what we have seen across the world is people are not going to clinics seeking medical help. So when someone has malaria, we're really encouraging them to go to the hospitals, to the clinics, and get the needed treatment and not try and just stay home and try and recover on one's own.
I see that one of the key shared symptoms between malaria and COVID-19 is the infamous fever. Is there a way perhaps to determine whether it's a malaria or a COVID-19 fever?
Yes, it can be done quite easily. Malaria tests are done via rapid diagnostic test. You can get the results within 10 minutes, very easily obtainable. All the clinics and hospitals should have them. Okay. And it's very easily taken.
I mean, is it possible then to contract both diseases simultaneously?
I would believe so. They different types of diseases, and I'm sure that it's possible to get both at the same time. That would be, pretty rare in South Africa, given that malaria is not high up on the burden of disease in the country, but certainly it's possible.
And it's been said that when in an endemic area, malaria may pose a more immediate threat than COVID-19, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, the mosquitoes have not adhered to lockdown. We've had the rains come through across the country, so we've seen, the uprise in mosquito populations. The pesky things have been all over the place. So within malaria environments, we're going into transmission season. And malaria is a disease that is totally curable. Malaria is a disease that's preventable. So applying a good mosquito repellent, wearing long sleeves, tops and long bottoms early evening help protect you from getting malaria. And of course, if you're traveling to a malaria endemic area, there's a wide range of prophylaxis that one can take to protect oneself, especially if you're going on holiday. This time of year, going into the festive season, people are at most risk.
And as much as COVID-19 and malaria is by and large both preventable and treatable, but what are some of the precautionary measures one must do to prevent contracting both diseases?
Like I said, traveling to a endemic area, please take a prophylaxis. If you're going, our borders are pretty much closed, but normally people would holiday within Mozambique or Zimbabwe. Please be careful. Make sure that you do test yourself if you are feeling unwell. I think that also just the simple behavior changes that are needed. Don't have stagnant water at the home. If you're in a malaria endemic area, make sure that the surfaces are clean. Ensure that you have a good mosquito repellent, insect repellent, and of course long sleeves.
Speak to us about the SADC Malaria Day that took place yesterday and your efforts as Goodbye Malaria in combating this disease.
We were celebrating the progress that has been made against malaria. As well as, WHO had put out a report saying that if malaria interventions were not carried out in Africa this year, we could see as many as 800,000 people passing from malaria. Thankfully, most countries have been proactive in getting malaria interventions to the communities, and we don't think that this worst-case scenario will come to pass, but it's still a real threat. What we'd like to highlight for SADC Malaria Day is that community involvement is key to zero malaria. And we know we can get to zero malaria. We're not that far off in South Africa. It requires us to keep our foot on the accelerator, requires a concerted effort, and we certainly can get there.
All right, Sherwin, thank you so much for chatting to us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Sherwin Charles is one of the founders of social benefit organization Goodbye Malaria, and he joined us to speak about how to handle COVID-19 and malaria while on holiday.